Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. E.
And I am Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Man.
Today we're talking about law enforcement to go after a crime that we talked about last week, because there are a lot of problems with U.S. law enforcement. Though I'm not of the ACAB abolish the police faction. I just think it needs a lot of reform.
I mean, can sympathize with the sentiment "fuck the police," though, because of the simple fact that so many laws are bureaucratic bullshit that have nothing to do with actually improving anyone's quality of life or reducing any harm to society or people. Um, Also, in certain other countries, cough, cough, the UK, cough, the police have taken it upon themselves not to take ethical stances within the context of law, but to start taking moral stances in the realms of ideology. And just shoot them all now is the answer I have to that.
The British police will literally come around to see if they're having the correct thoughts.
They're they're literally like the kid from Twilight Zone, Anthony Friedmont. You're having bad thoughts about me, so you're going to the cornfield, and by cornfield I mean the rape prison with all the Muslims in it. At least the ones we bother catching. Uh,
So while we could do a whole episode on the British police, let's first talk about what's going on in our own backyard. Um, like there have been a lot of conversations going about policing. Like most of them starting from the George didn't do nothing wrong ever Floyd incident.
yeah, the George he was a saint, trust us, Floyd incident. Never mind that he was literally in the process of dying of a fentanyl overdose when he was arrested, but oh well, details.
And he was being apprehended in the commission of a crime. Ironically, if he wasn't struggling, they probably could have gotten him to a jail and probably gotten him medical attention faster than all the struggling he did.
Granted, Derek Chauvin may have gone a bit overboard with the whole knee on the neck thing, as we all know, and no one is defending that person.
Well,
But
just
nor are
one
we defending the let's throw everything but the kitchen sink at him, regardless of whether it actually applies to the situation or not approach.
well, just on the Derek Chauvin thing. Based on standard police procedures of his department, he was authorized to tase George Floyd for resisting instead of just attempting to restrain him. Now, I think that the hold that he was using was a bad one, but I don't think the situation would have gone any better if he had tased him either.
No, I think they would have. I think they would have called it the new lynching if he had tased him.
But
Hell, they damn near called this the new lynching, and there was no actual, lynch type things going on in this situation. But again, I just want to point out that while he may have been guilty of some negligence here and there, and so on and so forth, you tried to make manslaughter stick to him, which that doesn't apply, and you tried to make actual premeditated murder stick to him, and that definitely doesn't apply.
that makes
And
no sense. He
and
wasn't even first on the
words and
scene.
charges mean things, people.
Yeah, the premeditated murder charge is absolutely ridiculous because one, he wasn't even first on the scene. He came in after he was already resisting arrest. So if he had cooperated and went quietly, Chauvin would have never even been on the scene.
Now, granted, the man was high on fentanyl at the time, so he probably wasn't thinking straight, but, he probably shouldn't have been high on fentanyl at the time.
Yeah, but we really need to talk about the fact that anytime like there's an altercation with the police and the subject or suspect ends up dying, like people always like to completely ignore anything that led up to it, anything the subject might have done to put themselves in that position, and just go straight to the police officer as a murderer.
Remember the case where one girl was trying to stab another girl, and the police officers shot her to prevent her from stabbing the other girl, and yet somehow he's the bad guy
Yeah,
in
the
a
girl was.
situation where two people were having a stab fight.
It wasn't even two people having a stab fight. One girl was armed with a knife, the other girl wasn't. And the police officer arrived on the scene. He told them to stop repeatedly. They did not. And then the other girl, and then the girl that he shot had a knife, pinned another girl up against, I think it was a car, and was literally in mid stab when he shot her.
Oh, but he should have just trick shotted and made her drop the knife like Indiana Jones or some shit, according to the galaxy brains on the internet.
I mean, he's a normal police officer. He's not Doc Holliday.
he's, he's not the second coming of Annie Oakley or some shit.
It was like if he had like say he had not shot at her or shot at her and missed, the other girl would be dead, and they would also.
Granted, had he had a taser, that probably would have gone better. But you know,
Well, you have to think that again, the girl was literally in mid stab. So if the taser would not move fast enough, which tasers don't move as fast as bullets, the taser might not have reached her in time to stop her from stabbing. And some people are actually strong enough to resist tasers.
hmm
So I honestly think he had very little choice, especially considering that he gave them repeated warnings and the fact that she was literally about to murder somebody else.
I mean, again, it's a case of she was about to stab someone, and barring some kind of, again, like Indiana Jones, Doc Holliday esque trick shot to make her drop the knife, um, what did you expect them to do?
Another situation is I forget who the suspect's name was, but there was this guy. He was, I believe, causing a ruckus at the mother of his children's house, who I believe that she previously filed a report against him for like assault or something like that. And the police came, and he was fighting with the police. He was wrestling with the police. Then he gets up, starts walking to his car. The police officer tells him to stop. He ignores him, and he starts reaching gets to a car. The police officer goes to, um, pull him out of the car. The guy grabs a knife, and the police officer shoots him. And then people proceed to burn half the city to the ground.
Because that's totally a organic and natural response to that. I don't see the problem, Derp.
The thing that is even crazier is that one, the guy didn't die from getting shot in this case, and then he later comes out and says, "Yeah, I was the one in the wrong in that scenario."
Ah, but we have declared you the martyr, so you don't get a vote anymore.
Ah,
Just like Kyle Rittenhouse and Nicholas Sandman, we've declared them the villain, so they don't get a vote anymore either. And nor do the actual facts of either case, apparently.
I think we have really in recent years gotten a display of the two-tier justice system because there are often times where there will be people in like breaking the law, like quite obviously, like right in front of the cops. You can see them doing it, and the cops will just stand by and do nothing. Sometimes because they don't want to get involved, and sometimes because a politician like Mayor Ted Wheeler will tell them to stand down.
Well, because in the minds of the aristocracy, abstract crimes are worse than literal crimes. So it doesn't matter if two people stab people; that's just a random incident. But it, but if you create an abstract crime where it's the avatar of whiteness or privilege or whatever against the avatar of blackness and victimhood, then that's some kind of existential Lovecraftian horror, don't you know?
Well, what about the black people who are victims of other black people?
You mean like the fact that 90% of the George Floyd protest afflicted black-owned businesses and homes worse than they did anything else?
Yeah, it's like so many people like had their homes, their businesses, torched, destroyed, burned to the ground, and All
Let
I could
alone the
hear,
people who were actually shot in Chaz, most of whom were black.
yeah, the thing is, all I could hear in regards to the arson was that, oh, they have insurance that'll cover it. No, it wouldn't, and no, it did not, because most people don't necessarily have riot insurance because like insurance is a complicated thing, and most insurance policies don't cover like mass rioting, looting, and arson.
And also, if I may be the token lefty here for a second, when did it become unknown on the left that big corporations, especially scams like insurance, are bureaucratic evil bastards who don't actually like paying out for anything? Like that was the talking point on the left, like not even 5 minutes ago. Remember when we were actually advocating for single payer, and we all mutually knew and understood how shitty medical insurance was, and now all of a sudden, oh, don't worry, the bureaucratic conglomerate that we all mutually hate with every fiber of our souls will cover it because they can totally be trusted to not cut every corner they possibly can. All of a sudden,
I mean, it seems like really the only crime that those people could get arrested for would be assaulting a police officer because then it directly affects the police officer.
but then the police officer's in the wrong for trying to be a stooge for the establishment against the poor oppressed victim. Derp.
I don't think the police officer really cares about that. I think he cares more about his own
No, but
personal
he will lose
gain.
his job over this almost all the time.
Maybe. I mean, probably. It really depends on the state that we're talking about. But there have been. Did you hear about the preacher that got arrested in Pennsylvania?
I did not. What happened, and how much is my own state to blame this time?
Well, see, there was a gay pride parade going on, and there were like five Christians on the other side of the street protesting. I mean, literally, there was only like five of them, and the police came because I guess some of the pride marchers were complaining, and the the Christians were literally on the other side of the street, did not directly interfere with them, were literally just talking as is their right,
Yeah,
and
they're just being religious fundamentalist idiots. Like, they're gonna do whatever.
the thing is, the preacher started to read a passage from the Bible, and he didn't even finish it before the officer arrested him for apparently speaking in public about things other people don't like.
Because again, it's the thing of literal crimes don't matter nearly as much to the aristocrats as abstract crimes.
Like this is the
It,
kind
it,
of thing
it,
I would
it
expect in Britain.
hmm?
Like this is the kind of thing I would expect in Britain.
But the powers that be are global in their scope, so it won't be long now. Thank God for the nominal First Amendment. It'll at least take longer now.
Well, at the very least, because we do have a constitution and a First Amendment, the preacher can, sue the city and the officer who arrested him, which he absolutely should, and I hope he does, because you can't just arrest somebody for speaking a passage from their religion. They have freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Yeah, and not to mention, but just for the record, I'm gay. But this is still bullshit because, to quote one of my favorite lines from Demolition Man, you can't take away people's rights to be assholes.
Exactly. And like I have seen like people commit like outright crimes like indecent exposure and public lewdness like at pride parades in front of police officers, but those people will never get arrested.
Because they are the narratively approved victims of this situation, and therefore they can do no wrong.
So let me ask you something. Like, how would you reform, or do you want to reform the police, or do you believe they should be abolished?
Okay, one, um, because there are problems with policing. There are two things I would do. Number one, stricter psychological testing and profiling for potential police officers. Because while I firmly don't believe, I firmly believe that not all cops are assholes, and I don't even believe that the majority of cops are assholes. It must be said that the ratio of psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, and other cluster B personalities that can be found in police precincts is higher than average. Two, body cams all the time, and don't give them the option of switching it off.
I don't. I already think that's a thing.
It's not a thing everywhere, and in a lot of cases there are too many exceptions where they can switch them off. So, and I say that because the good old fashioned Stanley's razor. If um if police officers by necessity need the power to have a state sanctioned monopoly on violence, as well they do, then they also need to be held to a higher standard of what they do with it, which means body cams all the time with no option of switching off while they're on shift.
Yeah, true, true.
Which actually works in the police benefit in this case, because so many of these cases are, you know, someone does something that might be construed as wrong in a moment of, weakness or exasperation, but that's the only part the internet knows because a bunch of people whipped out their phone cameras. Well, if we had every police officer with a body cam that they couldn't switch off while they were on shift, they could literally just go, "Well, see, I have this footage here and it's unedited, and therefore I win."
I think one thing that could be done is to make it so that police officers do not have to bow to the whims of corrupt politicians like mayors and city councils.
Yeah, but who's going to pass a law about that? Because that would require a creature known as a honorable principled politician, and I think we might have like three of those in America, and be fucked if we get them anywhere else. So
There's
yeah,
three. I thought they were a myth.
I mean, um, Rand Paul, DeSantis, Ro Khanna, and if he ever gets in office again, Trump. So four, maybe. Um, and I'm being extremely optimistic, I think, in even including those four.
But I think we should make it so that say an incident occurs, the police officer can't just lose his job because a bunch of protesters put pressure on a politician. Like we have to give them some kind of backing that says like if you did the right thing, even if people are pissed off, we're not just going to throw you under the bus.
And again, this is why I advocate for them being monitored like freaking hawks, because one, with great power comes great responsibility, and they have the monopoly of force. Two, it actually can be exoneratory when shit like this happens.
Yeah, and that's I think having police be in some way tied to politics is a really big problem.
Honestly, speaking of people who need body cameras that can't be switched off while they're on duty, when are we gonna do like next gen C-SPAN so that politicians have to have body cameras?
I think I think every politician's office should be live streamed 24
Yeah,
7.
bug it. You're you're a public servant, therefore your career should be on the public record.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
and again, if you want to exert uh, disproportionate power than anyone else, then that power needs to be under stricter restrictions than anyone else. Which means that when you become a politician, you are a public servant, and therefore are maybe even foregoing some of your civil liberties in order to do the job.
I mean, I still think politicians should be drafted.
I mean, there's that too, and why not both is my answer to that. Uh, because this is the thing, we treat politicians like they're freaking aristocrats, when in actuality, on every level, they should be basically state appointed serfs more than anything. That we used to frequently use the phrase public servant, and now it seems like the phrase public aristocrat makes a lot more sense, at least based
Personally,
on
I
how we actually enforce them.
personally I was always raised to treat politicians with disdain. Uh, Sorry, I got a phone call. Um,
Hmm.
I will answer it later.
Hmm.
But yeah, politicians, in my opinion, should just be treated with disdain. And um, because
Honestly,
here's the
politicians
thing.
should be janissaries without the castration, i.e., they should be rather than politician be a position of privilege, it should be a position of highest scrutiny.
Is it like if you uh, have reverence for someone, you are less likely to throw them out of office when they prove themselves to be a bad politician. Whereas if you have disdain for politicians as a whole, the moment they fuck up, you'll do
And treat
everything you
them like
can.
servants.
Yeah, you'll do everything you can to shit can them.
Hmm. Because when the cashier at McDonald's, you know, fucks up the order for the 50th time, he gets shown the door. But when a politician, fucks up the entire geopolitical landscape for several countries, um, he does not get shown the door for some reason. Also, term limits, motherfucker. Term limits for
Uh,
all of them. Term.
Let me ask you something. What do you think of instead of having these big overarching police departments to have smaller elected sheriffs?
That makes the most sense of any. And the sad thing is that's how it largely used to be. You had your local police officer, and he answered maybe to a larger constabulary if you were in a large enough area, but other than that, you had the town sheriff. Now, granted, that also led to the town sheriff sometimes being a totalitarian butthole, like your occasional Gomer Pyle type. But that could be resolved by the aforementioned: give them body cams they can't turn off while they're on shift ever.
No, not only that, but if he starts acting like a totalitarian, you could always just vote him out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think smaller sheriff's departments are the way to go. And I think psychological um, training, so that we've seen a lot of police officers like not do their duty because they've gotten scared. So I think better psychological training about how to handle crisis situations
Well,
would be
psychological
appropriate.
training, yes, and higher psychological scrutiny to get the job in the first place. Because again, the aforementioned, the amount of cluster B personalities in policing is disproportional, and police probably wouldn't have such a bastard uh, reputation if it weren't for the, you know, fifth of them that are actually sociopaths who are just looking for ways to abuse people with bureaucratic bullshit.
And what do you think
We should
about the
also administer this to politicians while we're calling back to shebang there, because the number of politicians who are sociopaths is fucking. Speaking of things that are disproportionate, I think that might be an actual majority of.
now? I would agree with you, but then I would only argue. But then you're putting a lot of power into the hands of the psychiatrists who are going to be doing the evaluations.
Who are also disproportionately sociopaths, and in the modern parlance, all inculcated with feminist ideology. For example, toxic masculinity is actually in the best treatment practices now of the APA. So yeah, we're fucked all the way down, unfortunately.
Now, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the I believe it was the Uvalde incident where there was a school shooter and the police refused to go in, and also refused the parents the right to go in and try and save their children.
Um, hand in your badges. We will be replacing you at our earliest convenience. That's actually a good excuse for the classic 70s cop drama thing of hand in your badge, you rogue policeman there, the famous trope. Um, so yeah, that's okay. You don't want to actually do your job. We will find someone who will. Next.
Yeah, they would have been better off with Harry Callahan in that department, because he would have went in.
he, he would have probably pulled a John Spartan and jumped out of the helicopter, screaming the shooter's name while he's at it.
But yeah, like those people absolutely failed their community, and especially considering that the victims were children, I think it makes it even worse because
I mean, that's a you had one job moment. Like the only job of policemen nominally is to protect people's quality of life and enforce some semblance of civilization by putting your life on the line and using the monopoly that the state gives you on violence. Like that is the only purpose of police, damn it.
yeah, I heard
And yet they don't want
I heard a rumor, but I don't know if this is true. But I heard that some of the police officers who had children in the school actually went in and got their children out, and then didn't go back in.
to. Okay, now I can understand this, but it, good goddamn, that again, do not pass go, do not collect your badge, goodbye. Jesus
But
fuck Jesus fucking Christ. I understand I understand the notion of, wanting to especially be sure about your own, but if you're in there already, why not continue to do your job so that everyone else's children could be safe as well? Considering that again, the only purpose of police use the monopoly on violence to do good for the world and or people.
I personally believe that we should, for these situations, we should bring back public humiliation, like the stocks. Have people put in stocks and have the town throw rotten food at them.
I I think that's a little bit too kind, honestly. We should subject them to the social media cancellation treatment. That's worse in today's day and age. We, basically, what we should do is what the 11th Doctor did to Colonel Manson in A Good Man Goes to War. Just start calling them demeaning names and make sure it's forever cemented in history that they are absolutely fucking chicken shit.
I know that was an episode, but I don't remember what happens.
Colonel Runaway. He fixed history so that everyone would forever know this Colonel Manson as Colonel Runaway, so that he would constantly be publicly ridiculed by everyone he ever met, so that whenever anyone would come to him asking if getting to the doctor via the people he loves is in any way a good idea, he can just tell them to run away.
Was that a Tenant episode?
No, that was 11. That was Matt Smith.
Ah,
Amy had been abducted by the Silence, and they had taken her baby, and the Doctor was on the absolute warpath, so he called in a bunch of favors to.
you're right. Right. I believe that was one of the season finale episodes.
Yes, it was. I believe it was season 6.
Yeah. All right. Now enough about Doctor Who. We got to get back on topic.
Yeah, but that's the treatment that such chicken shit police officers should get.
Now let me ask you something. we have law enforcement for various things like ATF is for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. We have ICE for border security. We have the DEA for drugs, and the NSA to violate our rights. Now, um, regarding things like the FBI, because the FBI has been shown to be like very politicized and very corrupt in recent
The
years.
FBI only existed to counter the mob during Prohibition, and yet somehow, long after the mob is basically a non-entity and long after Prohibition has been repealed, they're still fucking going.
Yeah. The FBI is a perfect example of mission creep. We just keep finding ways to continue the mission in ever expanding uh, scope. But yeah, there are a lot of people who have been calling for the FBI to be abolished and just have the other agencies like expand slightly to fill in the gap.
Yes, Jed, yes.
Now, what do you think the odds of that happening though? Because the FBI at this point is so entrenched, it has so much influence, not just in law enforcement but also in politics, and I'm
Yeah,
sure they
and
have
they
their
traffic
issues.
in information, so you know they have blackmail on literally every politician if they need it, or at least the higher ups do.
Yeah, and yeah, the FBI just reminds me of another old saying that there is nothing more permanent than a temporary government policy.
Yep, 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 uh-huh. Although, in fairness, most of this can be laid at the feet of one man, and that is Mr. J. Edgar Hoover. That guy was a sociopath. He just happened to be fighting a bunch of other sociopaths at the time.
Didn't he also wear dresses?
I have heard that, although I have never heard that from anything I would call a reliable source, so I have no idea. But honestly, given all the other bullshit he was involved with, I don't give a fuck about his cross dressing habit if he did in fact have one.
But yeah, the FBI has really been involved in a lot of shady things. Like I've heard one of their practices is that they will find somebody who is like maybe going off online about a political issue, and
Mm-hmm.
then they will send agents in undercover to try and befriend him, and basically try and gas him up and try to convince
Glowing,
him to actually
glowing.
do, yeah, to actually do some sort of attack, and then they'll arrest him.
Well, remember, the Unabomber was largely a result of MK Ultra because Ted Kaczynski, when he was in college, volunteered for psychological tests or psychological experiments, and unbeknownst to him, one of them was a government program trying to figure out how to break people. And yeah, basically, a guy who was running the test made it his personal mission to gaslight and emotionally cripple Ted Kaczynski. And yet somehow the FBI and CIA are totally not to blame for any of the things that he did as a result of being psychologically damaged and broken. Hmm.
Do you remember that rally that they had where it was supposed to be a rally after January 6th, and basically no legitimate protesters just showed up, and it was just a bunch of agents that were so uniformed
It
that they
it,
could
it,
just
it,
have
it,
some
it,
fun.
it was just glowing all the way down.
Yeah. There was actually one guy who got arrested at the rally, and the police officers had to let him go because he was an
Trolls,
FBI
trolling
agent.
trolls, trolling trolls, trolling trolls. It's almost like on the ground, the strawman mustache twirling evil dudes don't actually exist unless the bureaucracy too clueless to realize that meddles and makes it a thing. But who could possibly say something so totally not reasonable? Hmm.
You know,
And of course, I'm saying that mostly because the YouTube gun is to my head.
there's the old saying of the firemen who start fires just so he could be the one that puts them out. I think that's definitely the FBI at this point.
Yeah,
I'm
are
not
we
saying they don't.
absolutely sure we're not living in Fahrenheit 451? Because it sort of feels Fahrenheit 51-y to me.
I mean, I'm not saying that they don't actually do tackle legitimate threats sometimes, but when you talk about the number of mass shooters who the FBI have been aware of and did nothing about, and then you get into the fact that they are spending an inordinate amount of time investigating Catholics instead of people who are on video, busting up shops and burning buildings down. It's kind of hard to take them seriously as an
But
organization.
the establishment thinks that abstract crimes are worse than literal crimes. So of course the Catholics are dangerous because they threaten the ideological framework, don't you know? Just like in San Angeles, the scraps are more dangerous than the mass murder with super strength because Dr. Cocteau says so.
But yeah, I do think that we would be a lot better off if um, our law enforcement, one, applied the law equally, in that anybody who breaks the law gets the same treatment, whether you give them a slap on the wrist or you are slapping them in irons.
And if it turns out that a system where the law is applied evenly is totalitarian and shitty and results in rebellion, good, because most laws are overly bureaucratic nonsense that could be done without, frankly.
I Yeah, there are a lot of laws that do need to be repealed, but I just think as a society it would be better if um, you know if the law was applied evenly, because then at least like no one could claim a two-tiered justice system.
Right, but more to the point, if the harsh version of the law was the one applied evenly, then that would actually maybe get it through everyone's thick skulls that wait, you mean the rules apply to me too? Well, then we should try for libertarian populist rules instead of totalitarian bureaucratic rules, because that's what people who have actually had principles this entire time have been saying the whole fucking time. Thank you. But everybody loves special pleading.
I believe there was actually an FBI agent who, in regards to the investigation into the president's son, said that they had found evidence that warranted a much stricter and intense investigation, but they just didn't.
Because he's on the good team, so he gets he gets the luxury of being seen as a human being, but anyone who isn't part of the narrative will have their right to be seen as a human being revoked, don't you know? Hmm.
Just to circle back to the summer of 2020, like a lot of the rhetorics that were being thrown at cops caused a lot of you know police officers to quit, including a lot of good police officers. So I'm guessing is that like if you like make it so that all the people who are actually doing good in uniform, feel like it's no longer worth it to be a cop, all you're gonna have left is the corrupt, politically minded,
The
jackals.
sociopaths, the cluster B personalities, who
Yeah,
are just there to abuse bureaucracy and power as much as they can.
yeah. So
Well, it's just like every other time this happens. When you tell a certain variety of people, whether it's normally it's a fan base or a customer base, but in this case it's police officers, you are evil. We don't want you. Go the fuck away. A lot of them would just go okay, and then surprise, fucking surprise, things collapse and are miserable. Who could have seen this coming?
see, that's why we need things like local sheriffs, so that if we want to elect somebody who's actually gonna uphold the law, we can. And then if over important they want to have somebody who is just gonna let them run rampant and do whatever they want, they can do that and then continue to burn their city to the ground.
Nuke Portland. That's all I'm saying. We should nuke Portland. It's better off in the long run. There are small enough nukes now that it would literally only affect the people in Portland. and we could even have most of the reasonable people with GTFO first.
Hey, there's the Greater Idaho movement, where I believe parts of Oregon are trying to leave the state and unite with Idaho.
Good for you guys. Do that. Do that, and then we can just nuke Portland, and all will be right with the world again.
But let me ask you something. Like, in cases where say you have like a federal agency like ICE or something, like, what do you think their primary duty should be? To obey, like, say the um officers in the executive branch of government, or to uphold the law in the area that they are assigned?
You would think that officers of the law would give a shit about the law, but eh.
See, that's where I'm concerned, because like again, take ICE for example. Like, we have a very open border. Like, anybody who's actually paying attention to the situation at the border can see that.
I
And
mean, fortunately, we don't have the boat migrants just yet, but the powers that be are working on turning us into the UK. So, meh.
yeah, and we have an agency to handle that, but they're being so hampered by the executive that they're unable to do their jobs, and they're essentially just, catching people, detaining them shortly, and then releasing them into the interior of the United States, or even worse, putting them on planes paid for by the federal government, flying them around the country, and then releasing them.
It's a little bit like the thing we mentioned. I believe it was last week about the cashless bail thing, about how it really, really, really shouldn't apply to multiple offenders or violent offenders, but it does because reasons.
This is a federal government who was using a law enforcement agency to blazingly break the law.
Because again, abstract crimes are worse than literal crimes apparently. So as long as everything is going according to the plan, nothing is wrong. But if anything ever goes against the plan, even if the thing that goes against the plan is better than the plan, then we treat them like the worst scum of the earth. Because the scraps are worse than Simon Phoenix, remember.
All right, so I'm going to shift away from the current topic, just to end the stream on a more lighthearted note. So I don't have a very important question that I want to ask you, and I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it seriously before you answer.
Hmm.
Who do you got in the fight, Zuck or Musk?
I hope for Musk because nobody should nobody should be rooting for Zuck at any point ever because the man is a Borg. But he does apparently have fight training. Where he got that and when he got that, I don't fucking know. But he does apparently have fight training. So who I want to win is Musk. Who I would expect to win is Zuck. Unfortunately,
Now, I also want Elon to win, but again, being logical about it, Zuckerberg's training in, I believe, jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which I believe does benefit people who are smaller than their opponent. Just with the
of which
full,
of which Zuck is because I believe he's around the same height as me.
yeah. So that would definitely give him an advantage. However, Elon does have the size, weight, and I believe reach advantage.
He also is a maverick, whereas Zuck is a socially awkward little shit who is a Borg, and while that Borg programming might be useful in circumstances, Elon has the creativity bonus, and creativity in such a fight is extremely useful.
obviously. Now I know that Zuck has entered some tournaments, but tournaments are different from, like, say, an MMA fight.
or a bar brawl or anything else with less structured rules.
And if you're and if you're going from, like, say, a tournament to, like, an actual fight, like, I don't know if Zuck is prepared for that
Yeah,
mentally.
I think what's going to determine this win is probably going to be the Harry Dresden effect, I guess you could call it. There's so much emphasis placed on technical proficiency and technical this and technical that, but you know it at the end of the day, when the gun's in your face or when the thug is in your face, it's the scrappy it's the scrappy improviser that tends to pull ahead.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that both of them have to be aware of is, you know, how hard are you prepared to get hit, and how hard can you hit back? Because, like, there's an old military saying, like, no plan survives contact with the enemy.
And very few plans of anyone survive contact with Elon Musk. So there's that.
Yeah, but just gotta say, look, if somebody lands a solid punch on Musk or Zuck, how are Musk and Zuck going to take that? Are they going to be prepared to fight back with everything they've got, or are they going to cower away for fear of being hit again?
Well, I think this is the thing, like you mentioned, Elon Elon has more actual weight and size behind him, so he whether he is a bit of a bitch or not, he can at least take more punishment than Zuck can, whereas Zuck is much like myself, a manlet, and a
But
manlet who became rich just out of his teenage years, so he's not really had much of time in that their real world.
I think we should also take physical fitness into account. Since because Zuck has been training, he's probably going to be fitter and therefore have more stamina than, say, Musk, who is going to just be training for this fight.
Well, I don't know how healthy Elon is just on a general basis, though, to be fair. He strikes me as the type of person who would be healthier just, out of like health consciousness, but I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, he's a healthy guy and he can afford, like, doctors and dietitian and trainers and all those things. So,
Yeah, and I do mean he can hire the he has enough money where if he wants to hire the trainer who helps, Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth or Henry Cavill get into shape, then he can do that. So there's that too.
Nelson says that he has his money on Musk as well. Now, one thing we have to consider is when the match is going to occur, because that's going to determine how much time they both have in order to prepare for this thing. And I don't think a date has actually been set yet, so we don't know how much time they have to stay, like, get in fighting shape. So if Musk has enough time to prepare himself, I think he would definitely have a big advantage over Zuck.
Yeah, and again, the just wild card, improvisational maverick thing, I think is Musk's biggest asset. Whereas again, Zuck is a socially awkward Borg of a human being.
One advantage that Zuck has over Musk, and I believe Tim Pool mentioned this on his show, is that Musk is older than Zuck. So while Zuck is, I believe, in his 40s, Musk is in his 50s. So do you think the age advantage with Zuck being younger is going to come in play?
I They're close enough that I don't think it would matter. And again, it depends on how much of a health nut Elon is versus how sedentary Musk usually is.
Uh, Another thing that I heard is that this is going to may in fact play havoc with the stock market, because these are two very important men in the two very big companies, and I'm sure their companies have a lot of insurance policies out on them in case of the unforeseen.
Elon would make this challenge just to troll the shit out of Zuck. I like again. This is the danger of not only a genius, not only a possibly evil genius, but a possibly evil genius who is just in it for the lulz.
Yeah, but yeah, you gotta think. Is Are they going to be insured for the fight? And if so, like the insurance that's going to be for this fight is probably going to be like in the billions of dollars.
I don't think Zuck is gonna die. It would be fucking hilarious if Zuck died from this, but I don't think either of them is gonna die.
If Zuck was critically injured, he would just use his lizard man powers to regenerate.
Or he would update his Borg programming.
But one hilarious thing I saw was Elon Musk's mom telling people not to encourage her son. But
And again, this is why, as much as I am skeptical of billionaires that, as a general rule, I kind of love Elon Musk because he will do things just for like he's. This is the difference. I don't think Zuckerberg was that human to begin with, whereas Elon has managed to become the top, rich person in the world, and he still has the sensibilities of your average 2017 Kekistani beating in his heart somewhere. And
yeah,
if we must have an oligarchic overlord, I'd much rather the resident of the proud nation of Kekistan than I would the Borg lizard dude.
yeah.
And I would take either of them over Soros in less than a heartbeat.
I heard that the money that they raised from the fight is probably going to go to charity or something like that, which is good. But I also think it would be very funny if Elon and Zuck each made a personal bet on the fight, like say they
A
each had to
gentleman's
pay the
wager.
other. Yeah, like they each had to pay the other like a million or something, which would be nothing for them.
Well, yeah, but it'd be enough that it'd be enough that it'd be like if you or I bet $100 on something, but it would still be enough that it would make it worthwhile to win.
Yeah. Or they could do something hilarious for the bet, like say like some sort of public humiliation, like like Zuck had to publicly promote Twitter.
Or 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 um or he has to watch the Social Network movie on a loop because apparently he hates that, which I find hilarious because I really love that movie.
It did make him look really terrible.
Honestly, I didn't think it made him look that bad. It made him look a lot more human than I think he actually is.
I mean, how human could you be when you screw over your best friend?
I mean, I get it because they're both businessmen, they're both ladder climbers. Like, let I certainly don't want to slander Eduardo Saverin because he did seem like a fairly decent guy from everything I've heard. Were the circumstances different, I could see a situation where he would be painted as the bad guy and Mark would be painted as the victim. So, like, let's not act like that's not to some extent how the game is played, at least a little bit. But again, part of it is he was like what Mark Zuckerberg was like 18 at the time, so he was still in the you know um edgy high school slash college kid drama mill mode. So that might have been part of the reason why. I think if he tried, I think if he had it to do over again and he did that now, he wouldn't do it quite so dishonorably. I think part of it is you have this kid who sped all the way through high school but still has the mentality of a high school kid, now being the head of a multi-billion-dollar company, and all that separates him from getting literally everything in the world is screwing over his friend. So it's the internet blood sports model of loyalty. You are as I am as loyal to you as you are useful to me in this moment, kind of thing. I mean, let's be honest. If you put Jim, Mr. Medicare, in charge of a multi-billion-dollar company, he would be backstabbing all the motherfuckers. So I can't really even hold that against him.
I think it'd be funny if if Zuck won, then Musk has to make a Tesla store for the metaverse where they can buy where people can buy Tesla cars in metaverse.
That would be funny, or he has to put like 100 million into the stock of the metaverse, because let's be honest, without help, that idea is going nowhere, because everyone looked at that and went, "This is literally the dystopian part of Ready Player One. What the fuck are you playing at?"
I mean, to be
Because
fair though,
apparently Musk
the
was
game that
either unaware of that or he thought we were all stupid.
I mean, the if you took the dystopia part out of it, Ready Player One does seem kind of cool.
I mean, kind of, but I still don't want to join the Oasis, especially not a crappy Facebook branded version of the Oasis in real life.
But I think it'd be funny if the next time Elon sends a rocket up into space, he got instead of having SpaceX, it has Meta branding.
That'd be funny. Or like after Elon gets the SpaceX technology to work, and he's like, claiming planets, he has to give like one of Saturn's moons to uh to Zuck. It'd be funny. Like they just start dividing up the cosmos, like uh Atreides and Harkonnen or something.
Or if Musk wins, Zuck has to make Elon Musk the front page of Instagram for a month.
That'd be funny.
So let me ask you something. Like, do you think that there's actually going to be people betting on this? And if so, like, what would the odds that would you give? Like, what odds would you give, and who would you have in favor?
See, I still think the wiliness of Musk counts for more than people are thinking, because he is just that much, like I say, he still has the soul of a 2017 Kakasani, and I don't think Borg Boy can no matter how technically proficient the fighter he is, can he actually handle, bar fight rules instead of tournament rules? Can he actually handle the wiliness of, bar fight rules?
So what would you be? What odds would you give? Like, 2 to 1 Musk, 3 to 1.
Yeah, I'd say about 2 to 1.
Yeah. I I would give it to Musk as well, but I don't know what odds I would give him because there's just a lot of factors. I feel like if we get closer to the fight and we see what kind of shape they're in, um, then we could have a better sense of who's gonna
We're gonna have to do a Duality of Men and Fighting stream that's like us react to the fight if they broadcast it. We should totally do that.
I mean, I hope they broadcast it because it'd be kind of boring if it was just only in Vegas.
Yeah, no, I want to see it. I want it to basically be treated like a UFC title fight or something like that. How they've actually used the octagon, for fuck's sake? They can afford it.
If it's if it's on pay per view, it will be one of the few things on pay per view I'd actually be willing to pay for.
Yeah, no, I would totally pay for that. Although I hope they stream it online so we can actually do like a response video stream to it. Duality of Men and Fighting, where we basically do like announcer color commentary on the Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg bout of 2024 probably by the time they do it.
It'd be funny if everybody wants to do commentary on the fight and then it gets banned from YouTube.
That. I see.
Maybe we should
I
throw one
don't.
of the
I don't
good
think so.
guys
I
in
don't
there.
think Elon would let that happen. Even if he lost, I'm not sure he would let that happen. I'm pretty sure he would pull rank with. He would pull rank with YouTube if they tried to pull that shit. Because Elon is one of us. He's a memester, so he's not letting this be banished to the Wayback Machine or archive.
All
Wouldn't
right.
be surprised if Elon broadcasted it himself.
All right. So we've been an hour. Let's wrap it up because I have to go answer that phone call that came in earlier. So,
Hmm.
do you have any final thoughts regarding law enforcement?
Um, Not all cops are bad, and the cops that are bad largely because a lot of laws are bureaucratic bullshit.
I know that we have some problems with the police, but the way to counteract that isn't by not enforcing the law.
Hmm.
All right, everybody. I've been Mystery.
I've been Dalton Motivated Authenticator. We have also discussed the Zuck versus Musk question, and we have been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys.
Bye, everybody.